Hello everyone. All right, we are going to get started here pretty quickly, but I need to share this link out in the Discord and to Twitter. I hope everyone is doing well. Give everyone a few minutes to get in here. I think the current price Bitcoin's at is actually quite critical for a few different ideas. Should make sure I'm got this screen set up properly here and that my mic is on. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, let's head over to the Bitcoin chart, and we're going to take a look at a few things here. All right, so Bitcoin, where are we bouncing from? Where do we reject from? Let's get some context going here. Come down to some of the lower time frames. I showed this level on Twitter, and I counted it. I talked about it 11 times in the members Discord over the last 2 days, where I'd be interested in looking for longs. And it's a very simple level. The way we got to it was quite neat though, so I'm going to go over that. And the level was here around 68,400, coming and retesting the 618 from this high to this low. It's also the 1618 extension from this low to this high, and it was also this key horizontal, but it was also this trend line. And so the neat kind of confluence here with this level is the timing of the level coming in, which is there was only one moment in time where these horizontal levels cross paths with this ascending structure, which gave it just a very cool confluence there, because it was just that one moment in time where price could have hit this level, so it interacted with this intersection. If it hit it here, if it hit it here, it's a breakdown. Here, it's just a continuation of the trend line. And what I want to point out here is here I'm saying I just scrolled through the update feed. I have updated the idea of long in the exact low of where we bounced 11 times in the last 2 days in this channel alone, and on Twitter, and on my last live stream when we were at the highs. I marked that out as my level. I also shared multiple variations of how that long could be traded and structured. If you were not prepared to long that level and are left without a long, you need to get it together. And what I'm pointing out here is this is yesterday, marking out all the key structures, and I actually marked out the timing of this level is starting to get closer to this trend line. So I mark out the trend line and I actually show this kind of intersection here and here. Said trend line seems like a reasonable level to continue longing after a TP1. And so the idea there is I can envision in my head, well, we have a range. We could look for a BART type sweep of the highs. That could be nice for shorts. And the level of longing down here, a sign of strength, is holding this ascending structure. And I said with this update, these are the relevant structures I'm looking at today as we continue ranging and are currently rejecting from our GP. Please understand that my diagram is not saying how price will develop to those levels or showing every option of how price could develop. I'm simply trying to give a visual representation of in what ways these structures are relevant, breaking, holding, etc. So I'm talking about the relevant levels are a BART-like sweep of the high, timing into this level, so on and so forth. But of course, I marked out this level the day before, marked out this level again, just saying I'm waiting for this level. I marked out a couple examples of how it could be traded, either trading into the level, giving it a little bit of room to breathe, or waiting for the reclaim of some local structure. And what I want to just point out here, why this was such a nice long setup, because it's instructional, is if we come down into the lower time frames here, and we're going to look at order flow as well. And we could break out here. Order flow is quite bullish, actually. So I'm looking at this key level. I'm going to talk about why. But we come down. We have a local sweep into the level. That's a nice trigger. If you had long this initial reaction, looking to TP1, but I just adding back onto the trend line. So the idea was, it's reasonable in my view, when we're back here, to just keep longing into this trend line as long as it's holding, because that's our bullish structure. What's the bullish thesis? Well, we just keep carrying higher on this ascending structure off of key levels. So I'm not looking to get emotional and long an impulse. I'm looking to long a key level, and that's where I'd be willing to take on some more long risk. And so I have shorts in that I've taken profits from. I have longs that I'm looking, well, I've taken profits, I've longed this twice, and I'm looking to see what happens at this key level, and we'll talk about why it's a key level. But this was the reclaim idea. So these were the two setups that I shared. Either both would be reasonable. If you don't want to long into the level, waiting for the reclaim and longing with your stop under this low. Of course, because of this ascending structure, there's more confluence, just all the timing. So it's like kind of neat how it all played out. But of course, the main principle here is having a plan, being prepared, and I'm happy to wait to long into a key level. I'm not going to be longing at the highs here. If I'm going to take on some long risk, in the case of us not breaking down, I want it to be down at a key level of support. So let's look at order flow really quickly. And what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to actually clear off my entire chart. And we're going to look at things with a fresh perspective and just break down multiple potential scenarios and what levels seem critical. So let's go to order flow really quick here as we come into this key level. Well, first off, I pointed this out in the Discord as well. There's no way to interpret this locally but bullish. So not only are we holding up these critical technical levels, locally this is just all bullish order flow. And here at the low, right into the level, well, we have 25 million negative delta on a $40 million candle here on Bybit. That's pretty significant. That's a very, I would say that's a very significant amount of longs getting stopped out primarily. Of course, a lot of people are going to have been longing into this rally. There's a lot of longs that came in on this first bounce too. Everyone gets stopped out. And then aggressive selling comes in. This is this yellow line here. So what's happening at the lows here? This is where people are getting bearish. So, you know, I'm not going to get into it too much, but I'm the idiot for looking for shorts at the highs. But then probably some of these people that say, why would you short? It's all so bullish. Now they're like, maybe Lucky was right. Maybe it's time to just start selling into this low. And so we see really aggressive selling here from probably what you would classify as your typical retail traders getting absorbed. Price just grinding up, higher lows, lower lows on CBD as all this selling gets absorbed. You would expect the most probable outcome here to be higher with just tons of technical confluence. So what would I like to see in order flow to kind of shift my perspective into maybe continuation to the downside? Well, I'd like to see price interacting with key technical structures, but I'd also like to see a lot of the shorts get squeezed out, maybe into these local highs, maybe into a new high, and a lot of FOMO longs opening back up. So until I see that, I'm not really going to be taking any new actions here. I have longs, and I have shorts with profits locked in. And so kind of don't care which way price breaks, although I'm leaning towards higher until we see something a little more bearish, until we see some of that ascending structure breakdown. And there's no reason for me to have a really strong view on whether price is going ultimately much lower or much higher locally based off of this, because we're holding up ascending structure. We have some technical rejections here. I can take longs, I can take shorts, and I don't have to have a strong bias. So on my last live stream, I talked about this exact idea. So if you go back, but this was from this high of shorting into these highs and price coming down into this level, retesting this level. And if that happened, we had some technical levels here, but this level would become our 618 retracement from high to low if we came into this low and bounced, where I can already envision that in the future this level is going to become quite important, which is it's a technical retest of this horizontal and our 618. And so at the time, this was 3 days ago, I was saying I'd be interested in longs down into this level. I think it's a really nice technical level. I'd be interested in taking profits on that long into here and leaving some running, and seeing how price plays out for here. Either a lower high and we start breaking down some of this ascending structure, but until we do, it's kind of bullish here, and maybe we take this high again, and then we could maybe look for that ascending structure to break. But there's no reason to, for me, I don't think, to just close all these longs, because price is grinding up on bullish absorption. We're holding up bullish structure. And so we're going to take a look at some different scenarios today. Like I said, clear off the charts and look at what would higher look like, what would lower look like. Okay, I'm just going to read a couple comments here. All right. So first off, interested to see how price interacts with this level, but let's clear off some of this analysis. I'm just gonna put all of this into a random folder so I can just toggle it easily enough. Let me come back and clean up these folders. All right, so if you've been following some of my analysis for a while, you'll know that I was getting short up here and looking for this breakdown towards a super key level here at 64,700, and the other key level was down here around 60,000, filling this wick. And I had a pretty nice long thesis, so we're shorting down into this order flow. Locally, lots of bearish signs. Was shorting down into this. I had a really nice long plan here locally, which was coming down into this level and longing up into this level. As some of you know, I ended up taking profits really early on that and taking a head short. Still a winner, but I kind of misplayed some of this price action with some new order flow data. But it's irrelevant. Because as price comes down here, this is where the thesis got formed of pushing up to $71,000. And so I took mini longs all the way up here, not shorting any of this. Even here, I took a long right before this level. If you remember, obviously, you remember those updates, targeting 71,000. Just adding to longs. We hit this key level. We've been ranging here. I have a swing short from here. I had a local short and another partial short. All skimmed off profits, risk removed. And the idea of the time of shorting was price coming down back into this 60K level. But what I don't want to do is get too caught up in my my plan, because that plan was made down here, right? So I've been trading towards this plan for many days, and so it's easy to get kind of caught up in wanting your plan to play out, and it looks so good. You know, yes, we longed all the way up and, you know, got these nice shorts, and I should just close this long because this is going to be a lower high and we're going to come back down to 60K. But is there anything particularly bearish here? Is there any reason for me to close that long? I don't think so. I think this was a good place to get back into longs. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that us pushing into all-time highs is possible and even likely if we do not break down this ascending structure. I mean, if this holds up on bullish absorption, what else is going to happen here? We have one little pivot high that could be relevant. But it seems to me that if we start breaking up out of this structure, really, even here, we have a local technical level that we're interacting with and a retest of this high. There's no structure in this wick. You can reject from anywhere, but it's just about what's the most likely. We start claiming this level. Would I expect a major rejection from something like that? At least not taking this high one more time? Probably not, as the most likely scenario. But as soon as price starts pushing up into these levels, well, then probably wants to take this high. And if it takes this high, I mean, I would say it's important, and probably somewhere I would look to take a scalp short, take profits really quickly, and leave some of it running for a potential breakdown. But until this ascending structure breaks down, all these are our reactions at a key level, and we might get another one here. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy. You know, if we go through how I approach this, essentially, let's just say this uptrend, just looking for longs towards 71K, 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 71K. I took profits and I took some shorts up here that I also took profits off of, and I'm winning on my shorts from up here. But I came up with an idea to get back long right here. And so now I've essentially, what have I done? I've won all the way up. I've won here locally because I'm taking some profits off my shorts, and I'm back positioned long, lower than when I closed my long. So I'm pretty happy because this is where I would say is a critical point. And of course I could have longed here and then price just broken down and I got stopped out my longs and my shorts would carry, which I would have been fine with. But I didn't want to get overly biased towards a bigger move to the downside. So let's look at these local structures and see where the long opportunities are. But you know, I want to, like, I kind of had the idea of like just clearing everything off. Maybe I'm going to do that again and just looking at things with a fresh perspective on the live stream. But it all seems so clear as far as what is important. You can look at the daily chart. We could just mark out, of course, levels. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. I'm interested in these SR flips when there's so much confluence for longs, right? It's always something you're looking for, is price to break a level and retest it as support. That's quite a bullish continuation idea for any asset. So right now we're holding these horizontals as support. We have this level above, and we have our all-time high. We have an ascending structure. What would be stopping price from breaking out to all-time highs here? I don't really think anything, except for some local rejections here, which are only significant locally, I think, until we start A, breaking down the ascending structure, and B, breaking down this horizontal. So someone says it's one. I'm just going to read through some comments. Someone says it's 100% not going down to 60K. I don't like to speak in terms of certainties, for sure. Anything can happen, but right now, this has to lean bullish. So I don't think there's any reason to be taking new shorts here. I don't think there's any reason to be closing longs from support. But anything can happen from here. I think the key ideas are this high and this high. Us getting rejected from them. And then we're just in price discovery. Will I short the local sweep of the high? I'm not sure. I want to see what order flow looks like. But that would be where I'd be most likely to short. The only issue I'd have about like a really like this short here is we've grabbed this liquidity, and so the difference between shorting here and shorting here is that now we are bouncing off of this ascending structure, this retest with a big flush in delta. So bullish ideas make a little bit more sense after this retest than they do before it. The odds of not coming down and wiping out this local liquidity seemed quite low to me. So yeah. And if we come and wick through this high, it seems likely that we're going to at least take this high. So I'd probably defer to shorting a sweep of this high and not something like that. But I'd be pretty cautious in terms of the expectations of shorts. Like I said, you could try some shorts around reactive levels. Be willing to cut them very quickly if price isn't going in your favor. But I think also taking profits very quickly while bullish market structure is holding up. Yeah, we'll take a look at a couple alts. Yes, the yellow line on Exo charts was CVD. Yeah, we'll look at FET. Okay, let me just look at some of these comments. Yeah, open interest is very important when it comes to CBD. Okay, yeah, let's pop over to FET. I pulled some local levels here. I think it's hard to call this bearish after this initial reaction. So obviously tons of volume coming up at the highs, some people getting wiped out. I pulled some quick levels here just to kind of look at this local price action. So if we go to the low time frames, we had a pretty big rejection, and I'll explain some of these levels and my thoughts behind them. We had a pretty big reaction from these highs, right? Like high to low at 12%. We had this really grindy market structure, and then we just broke up out of that. That's kind of a sign of strength locally, right? Price rallies, bounces off its 618, which has been quite an important low time frame. And I'm just kind of looking at this general uptrend here on FET, which has been quite an important local fib, right? Like you go back and you pull the 618 of these moves, getting lots of continuation. And in fact, one of the reasons that I wanted to look for longs on FET is because I thought very likely we're going to take these range highs at a minimum. And price was consolidating on the 4-hour here at the 618. Also had some nice kind of triggers for a local long trigger there. So that was my update down here, is that I wanted to look for longs up on FET. Still another almost 40% up through these highs. And I was able to take a couple longs on retracements. I took some profits off those locally, so I added a few times, took some profits locally. And I was even looking for more long entries up here for this last push up. But I've talked about this level for shorting FET as a key idea for a while. But anyways, here we have, let's just clear off some of this local TA, or these lines rather. Just kind of wanting to look at some simple ideas as we come up and retest these highs. So we can obviously see here on FET, there's an uptrend that's still holding. We've kind of wicked through this uptrend. But we had a much bigger move here, much bigger rejection, and we have some consolidation and a retest going on here. To me, there's the possibility that this internal structure is corrective. And what I mean by that is it's kind of a 1, A, B, C, 3 waves down. This looks corrective, and this impulse could be a C in a correction, or a B, or the C of a B. But so what I'd be looking for here is relevant. Well, the 1618 extension, which is where we're at, so I had that pulled just of this local price action. Be interested in the 1.237, just to keep an eye on how structure is forming into that. This is also around the 786 of the move, which is certainly an important level for a retracement on alts. And what I mean by that is whether it's a low coming in or a high, you say you have a big impulse to the upside and a big rejection, and then price rallies again. If you go chart on many alts, how often the lower high comes in at the 786 is pretty often. It's an important level to watch. And the same goes with at the lows. So you have a big move to the downside, an initial impulse and reaction off that low, and then a deep retracement to the 786, which is 78.6% of the move. So I'm keeping an eye on this, but considering Bitcoin's kind of bullish here, yeah, I don't know. We have a local range forming here. I think the idea of having shorts up here is still quite interesting, but kind of want to approach some of this structure locally. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it throughout the day, because I have nothing wrong, of course, with the idea of price breaking up and breaking out. We have an initial rejection and some structure forming here. So I'd probably be keeping an eye on a sweep of these highs and this level here around the 786 and 1618 of this local price action. If we break out of this, I think we probably are taking the highs. If we take the highs, there's just no way to know if we're going to sweep them and reject. If we do, then that's a little more bearish, or just break out, which is certainly bullish. Yeah, I mean, getting in on these low time frames, price kind of just grinding up into this local level. I don't know. It's kind of a tough justification to short at the 786, but the justification would be just short the fib. Maybe put your stop above the 886. Just doesn't look particularly bearish locally here, grinding up into the level. But the risk reward of just shorting it as a range, it's quite good. It's 21 to 21 to 1, so probably makes a little sense to just wait, though. See if there's a rejection, maybe another sweep of this high, or even waiting for some local weakness, which could just be this grinding ascending structure at least to start breaking down. Kind of have the same difference of an entry there. So we'll keep an eye on it. Bitcoin likely, it's just kind of consolidating, a little bit of selling getting absorbed. I think Bitcoin likely to impulse again to some liquidity here, which you could say that more likely alts are going to follow along. Kind of interested to keep an eye on FTM as well. But I do want to keep an eye on order flow. So like here, for example, as we approach this key level, this retest, we have some aggressive selling coming into this local consolidation. 2.5 million negative delta, 1.9 million, 1.6 million, and some early signs of bullish absorption here. So selling is getting absorbed into this level. I would lean towards, we could range, we could sweep some of these local lows, but I would just lean towards us breaking up out of this level. So to me, from an order flow perspective, makes no sense to close longs here. It's a critical technical level, but I would just say that it's kind of clear almost from just a price action standpoint, order flow aside, that price is just consolidating and grinding up under the level. So would I be, although I like to trade around something like this 618, would I be particularly interested in shorting this? No. From an order flow perspective and just from a like this perspective, as we grind up into the level, that doesn't mean we can't reject here. It's just doesn't look particularly bearish. It's actually kind of nicer when you have a quick move up into the level and liquidity is grabbed to set up a short than something like this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us break up out of this soon and during the live stream. I would say that is probably the more likely outcome of this level. I'm going to tighten up these alerts a little bit because I may scalp and add to my longs. I'm just going to mark out some local structure here. It's not necessarily that I like to just long trend lines, but I do like to be aware of where the trending structure is. I mean, yeah, this would actually be probably the ideal setup here, would be to come and take these lows. Require a pretty big rejection, which isn't particularly likely given this bullish absorption, but I'd be probably willing to be patient here, not just longing. It's one thing to not want to short this. It's another thing to long right into this level, right? I'm not going to long into resistance locally here. I'd rather have my longs from lower. But I am keeping an eye on this level because, you know, the reason that it can be so hard to remain objective is when you have this idea of, as I went, a price pushing up to this level, and then even here you say, you know, we come down to this retest and then we put in a lower high, retesting this high. It can be very easy to have that bias just consume you as it all worked out perfectly. This is exactly, you know, I need to have the balls, the guts to take this short because this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. But yes, this is what's happened, but there's nothing bearish here, so I'm not going to short this level. And in fact, I don't even think it's particularly likely that we reject from it when we're here. So, you know, just form a strong thesis, but as soon as you get some new information, new data, just let it go. There's nothing to prove. Although everybody on Twitter will disagree, because even though I'm long into this, even though I shared the idea that I was getting long onto this, both on Twitter, on a live stream, and 11 times in the Discord, there will be, if price breaks up here, there will be people who say, oh, you thought it was going to 60K. But what I did was long the whole way up. took some shorts here, covered some shorts, took some longs, and just approached the charts reasonably. Yeah, and so for example, I don't need to make grand plans right now for what I'm going to do with the next 3 weeks of my life. I think this, in terms of trading, I think we're at a crossroads here. I think if we start breaking up out of this, we're probably going to new all-time highs. But I just want to see how all this local structure plays out. Are a couple other alts. ETH coming back down and retesting this. It's 618. This level at the time. It's just the 1 hour chart. APT continuing to grind up on this kind of bullish ascending structure. Major pivot high ahead. I want to keep an eye on that. I want to keep this alert up under the ascending structure. Like I said, I want to keep an eye on FTM here as well. We have a pretty large range here. There's probably some sense. Wait, my screen's flipped around. There's probably some sense in looking for longs. On a reclaim of this. Maybe some shorts back up into the retest here. Although this is looking ever so appealing to just take the high at this point. Just marking out a few structures here. Reclaiming this seems important, but this looks pretty bullish, right? Just price grinding up towards this level. What you never want to do is find yourself longing right into the local resistance. But yeah, I'll probably look to get long into something like this. But probably not gonna just open the long here. But I am interested in longing up into the highs of this range. Of course, I took some longs here because I had this price action drawn out of a rejection, a range forming, and added to that long, to this GP retracement. But I did take a loss on a short, which the idea of my short was, I mean, this was just my idea of trading this FTM range from back here, was to look for longs down to the retest of this. So I took some longs looking something like this. And I took a small wide short up with the idea of shorting the retest of this level. But I caught the wrong retest, I guess. As we had an initial reaction there, hard to see it on the 1 hour. Price ran me out of my short and then came back down and retested a level and rejected back to the lows of the range. So this would have apparently been the right retest to short, but still interested in trading this as a range, both long and short. So I'm going to keep an eye on FTM. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on Bitcoin. Just kind of interested to see. I know this is the 1 minute time frame. Just interested to see how FET plays around this level. Starting to kind of, I mean, We're on the 1 minute chart. Remember that? Just looking for some signs of weakness here from FET, because we're consolidating at a key level of technical resistance, seeing some local weakness there. And of course, I'm interested in being swing short on FET from resistance, but looking for those low time frame signs of weakness can be helpful. All right. And no, I'm not gonna tell you guys to short FET or to long on this live stream. I'll explain what I'm doing, but I mean, I think if ultimately, if you have to be told to take a trade and how to manage it and how to manage your risk, you shouldn't be trading. You should just be, paper trade, learn, build some experience. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say again that we are pushing up into a key level on Bitcoin, but it's hard to say that there's anything bearish or bullish here, rather. Sorry, bearish. In order flow, it's just bullish. Nothing's really changing. There's not any really big volume happening here, so you could just argue we could reject and keep ranging, but I think the play is actually just longs on Bitcoin on retracements, while this ascending structure play holds that I mentioned earlier, and we have bullish absorption. That's my view. I wouldn't personally, although the case could be made for doing it, probably be interested in taking my longs here, but that's because I have longs from lower, as I discussed. Yeah, but I would say this: if I had to choose between taking a short here or a long, I would look for long trades. Prefer to wait for cleaner technical setups, but all that said, price could just nuke here as well. So. What would be the level where I add to my long? I'm not sure. Probably, I mean, I'm probably just going to be waiting for some more structure to form. So, like, for example, I think this idea looks interesting, which would just be another test of a local ascending structure. Always wanted to keep these ascending structures in mind here. But yeah, I mean, my plan probably is just to long this ascending structure until it breaks, and then consider cutting as it does. But ultimately, this is pretty low time frame. And I think it's, I mean, just from an order flow perspective, it's more unlikely that we get this, I think, than it is that we do. Just because so far the selling is being absorbed. So until we see signs that selling is not being absorbed, probably more unlikely. But just because it's unlikely we get this doesn't mean I'm not going to be willing to wait for it. I'm happy to let some higher time frame structures form. Because what I'm not so worried about is where price goes. It's how I can structure my trades around where price goes and is. And so I'm not going to take a bunch of kind of low probability setups longing into resistance when I can just wait for nice clean technical setups. But from a technical perspective, critical resistance on this retest. Expecting some kind of reaction could be reasonable. Order flows bullish. If we react from here, breaking this ascending structure is where, I'll probably start being more open to the original thesis of back down to 60K. All right. Yeah, I don't know if there's really too much else that I want to cover here. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything to say. I think everything's really straightforward. The structures are very straightforward. The bullish ideas are very straightforward. The bearish ideas are very straightforward. The place I would like to just trade around for my shorts and my longs is longs that support, shorts at resistance. So maybe I'll just do a quick scan through the chat here. Yeah, there's a couple questions I don't really understand what the question is, so I'm not going to answer them. And I think it's just hard, right? It's hard to leave a comment that's kind of a little more nuanced and get it through, get the point through. Yeah, someone's saying, what would be a short, a sweep of the high with tight invalidation? Well, that is a short, right? I mean, for example, I go through this all the time, but to take a short or a long on a technical trigger, as long as you're using risk management, if you have really good risk reward on that setup, like let's just say you wanted to short the high of this, like something like this, into this level, and you're getting paid anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 1 to 5 to 1 to take that short, well, it has to be pretty unlikely not to be a profitable decision. And so even if you're 50-50 on whether or not that idea is a good idea, as long as you're using risk management, risking no more than 1-2% of your trading account, it's a very reasonable idea because you don't have to be so sure. It's the same with the longs from here, that it's going to work. And even if you were 30% sure that it was going to work, which should be based off of data, but it's hard to have some data on these things, it's still worthwhile to take it, right? So price sweeps here, it's probably a worthwhile short to look at, something like this, just from the risk reward perspective of a lower high front running the all-time highs, making a move down into these lows. If you're getting 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1 on your money. I think I'm going to end the live stream. I kind of want to see how this level plays out on live stream, but we're just kind of going sideways here. So of course, I always make this joke. If I go on a live stream, this is what Bitcoin's price action does. So we can be breaking out into a critical structure here. Any other time, price is either wicking into it and rejecting, or breaking out of it. But if I'm on a live stream, we'll just go sideways for 3 hours straight. And so, and price action will just look like this. As soon as I end it, of course, it will go straight up. But anyways, I'm expecting higher, just bullish absorption, and I'm not in a huge hurry to short, frankly. I know that seems counter to what my plans were back here, but I think the context has kind of changed here. So, all right, hopefully that's helpful to everyone. If you're just tuning in at the tail end of this live stream, go back and watch the start where I really broke down the thesis. I I thought this live stream might be a little different because I was like, okay, I'm just going to zoom out, delete all the analysis, go to higher time frames. I kind of had my original bias coming in, which is kind of bullish locally, ascending structure. Probably bullish ideas should be considered as more likely as long as we're holding this up. But let's clear off all the analysis and look at things at a higher time frame. And nothing's particularly changed. It's kind of hard to interpret anything happening here other than the way that I have it interpreted. There's bearish ideas, bullish ideas, but the bullish ideas are quite clear in my view. So, all right.